Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hello, sweetness. And tonight we're going to talk about food, my favorite subject.
Of course you do. Of course it is.
I was very surprised about something, though. Whenever I use a lot of olive oil, and I turned around and the cat was going totally crazy, like licking the top of the olive oil bottle and then licking some of the olive oil that was still left on my plate. I mean,
Yeah.
she was like going crazy. I didn't know cats enjoy olive oil.
Didn't know either. I guess maybe it's just the fat and the olive oil, they just enjoy. I mean, I heard it causes diarrhea, though, and vomiting if it's too much.
It was like little residue.
Yeah, a little residue seems to be fine.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
So anyway, what I did tonight was, I don't know if this is like, as far as like ceviche goes, if there's an actual recipe for ceviche, but I kind of like make my own with my own recipe, where I'll take raw fish and I'll marinate it for 24 hours in soy sauce. This had like soy sauce with slices of ginger and garlic.
Okay.
And so I just did that and marinated it.
All right. No worries. I guess that brings me to my question then. I guess what's really hard to get, but very easy to lose? And you can think about that as you're eating your ceviche fish, whatever. Hard to get, easy to lose. I'm going to say reputation. I think reputations are hard to make, easy to break. But
that's my quote that I told you when you were a little boy.
I know you said reputations are hard to make and easy to break.
Easy to break.
Very careful. Very careful about your reputation. But that's another story, I think, when it comes to reputations. I remember growing up and hearing people in our lives being very obsessed with making sure their reputation is perfect and pristine. They tried so hard to keep their reputation nice and clean, and because they wanted to make sure they got a good matchmaking. And then for some people, in the end, it didn't really matter. It just, they found somebody when they found somebody. So it's just kind of life's a crapshoot. But
it's so true. What I don't like is there were some shoplifters where they'll almost, how can I say it? They use it almost like psychological blackmail.
Oh, yeah.
Where parents, I hate to say it, there's some well-meaning parents that will do this too. Like, if you act this way or that way, you're not going to get a good shit off. And
well, it's also
that business.
I mean, you told me that I'd die alone if I acted out too much. But
I never told you that.
You told me plenty of things growing up, and it's fine. It's life. So it's just, but like, that's how else are you going to tell a kid, like, hey, if you act like a little monster, no one's going to want to play with you anymore. Like, there's a level of reality they're going to have to face. Like, what else can you tell them? That pink rainbows and butterflies are not going to give them sweet little kisses when they get up in the morning? Like, no, realistically, you keep on walking down this path, you start acting that way, you're going to die alone and no one's ever going to love you, and that's fine. That's just part of maybe a little rough around the edges parenting. But I think maybe it's needed sometimes,
I don't know, being that hurtful, you're going to die alone, no one's going to love you. No, because your parents always love you. Let's face it, especially when, your parents will always love you.
Yeah.
Al Capone's mother adored him. But the reality of life is, it is true that if you act a certain way, kids will not want to play with you, and that's true.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to tell kids that, like, if a kid constantly gets upset or constantly gets angry and always gets into fights and always has to be the instigator of some sort, because I think being an adult is just learning either to let go or ignore most of life's troubles, because there's nothing you could do about it. Like, you might have some obnoxious person in your life and you can't get rid of them and you can't do anything about it. You have to sit next to them and you're just going to have to ride it out. This isn't, and I think that's the other part of just being an adult. I think nowadays everyone feels like everybody is disposable. So it's that little life lesson where it's like some things aren't disposable and you're gonna have to work through it.
So, you want to hear about my side dish?
Sure, let's talk about your side dish.
Okay. I got the it's called 50-50 mix.
What's
where
50-50 mix?
It's baby arugula, baby kale, baby spinach, baby chard. And you put it in a dish with like a red onion sprout, which I found in my refrigerator from an old red onion that had sprouted to sprout because I hadn't
Oh,
used
wow.
it in so long. And garlic and mushrooms. You put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and then you put olive oil and salt on it.
So do you feel like you've gotten better since you've gotten, aged to perfection, so to speak? And like maybe some dishes you wouldn't try again that you wish you never did? Or like some experiments you kind of went through when you were trying to like, feed us as kids and they were like, ooh, that was a bad idea.
That's a good question. The thing is, as a single person now, as a newly found single person.
You've been newly found single for the past 3 years, Ema.
Yes, as a single person.
Yeah.
I can now make food the way I want it. Like I could never. How could I possibly give you kids ceviche?
Give it a shot. I think honestly, I think the biggest thing is that give it a shot, see what happens. Like I've been working on myself, not thinking so negatively. And this one thing I saw on Instagram where it was like, for people that overthink, the best question you could ask them is, what if everything works out? And I've been asking myself that more and more of like, I get worried about this, worried about that. And then I just stop. I'm like, what if everything works out? And
that's not Jewish thinking.
Well, I don't care. I'm tired of that Jewish stereotype where Jews have to always be in this like bitter, kvetching attitude. Like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I never liked it. I didn't care for it. I don't care for a lot of negative thought processes.
It's true. That was one of the things that the Rebbe fought. The Rebbe, came on the scene at a time when the Jewish psyche was at a very low ebb.
Yeah, it was 1951.
Right after the Holocaust.
Yeah,
browbeaten. Like my mother's philosophy, it's gonna be, and you can't change it. Nice and positive. Like that.
Yeah.
And the Rebbe was the one that came and said, "Think good, it'll be good," and tried to like pick up everybody's spirits about Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha.
Yeah.
And that type of thing at a time when
we really needed it.
Was very negative, and I'm trying to like God's gonna make seem like when you kids were you remember a dish I made that flopped that you kids didn't like?
I do remember the muffin story, which you've mentioned previously on the podcast. But thinking of like failed botched cooking, I remember the family complaining about different cooking, but I never like didn't like the cooking. I don't think I was the guy who was a picky eater. As far as I understand when I was growing up, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I was a picky eater.
Well, in general, there weren't, most of the time, most of the dishes I made, you kids liked. It was my cooking was pretty standard.
I think
hamburgers. Hamburgers I used to make. Remember, I made my own like Western fries. I would take potatoes and cut and slice them up with the skins.
Yeah.
And I had a wok, and I put oil in the wok, very hot oil in the wok. I would put the potatoes in the oil and the hot oil in the wok, and then take it out with a strainer, and then lay it on paper towels, and then put seasonal on it.
Yes.
And you guys, everybody see. Like I said, my cooking was pretty standard like that. London broil.
Yeah,
but 6 minutes on each side.
The issue I had us growing up, I knew it was more because Tati wanted it this way. I did not like well done meat. I didn't like it at all. And to do a real good, well done, you really got to know what you're doing. Like the first time I had like medium rare, it was like I was just like I was so happy. Like it tasted so good.
That was the problem. I
Yeah,
liked it medium rare, and your father liked it
like
well
it well
done.
done. Yeah,
And so it was like
back and forth.
I remember one time saying to your father, I feel like I'm running a restaurant.
Yeah, because the kids would come in, they have their orders. But I know Thursday night was pizza night. That was something for sure. I do remember. That used to
What
be
I would do is I would take the challah dough
Yeah.
and I would use the part of the challah dough for making homemade pizza.
Yeah, that's what I was always tasted great. The homemade pizza was
Thank you.
always delicious. And I used to work at a pizza restaurant, and I got a better understanding of like how to make pizza and whatnot, because I think I tried too hard to make things too pizza-y or too doughy or too this, too that. And like I was trying to play around with things, and like now that like I had that experience when I started making pizza again, I knew just the right amount of sauce to make it, how thin should the pizza dough be, and all that stuff.
Now I don't like thin pizza dough. I like thick pizza dough.
Really, I like it thin. I like it thin. I think thick just feel like I'm just eating bread, and I don't care to do that. But
I like it nice and thick and doughy. Like what's it? It's like a deep dish pizza.
that's Chicago deep dish. That's different. That's a whole different way of it's being made, where they flip it upside down, where they have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have the cheese on the bottom and the sauce on top, and it's about like an inch and a half thick. And I'm not necessarily sure that the dough is so thick. It's just, just the way they make it is just, different than regular New York pizza, which is its own debate. And then you have, with the Italian pizza, they have all sorts of toppings and whatnot.
That's what I like about making my own pizza, is we could put all these toppings on it, and you name it, onion, mushrooms, whatever you guys wanted, and it was so economical. I mean, to get the same pizza in a pizza place for sure would have cost us over $20.
Well, they're back in the day, $20. I mean, if you think about it nowadays, like a pizza pie here in Baltimore is like $20. But to buy dough, and then the cheese, and then the sauce, and then put on the toppings and things like that, I don't know. I'd have to do it. I'd have to do the math and calculate it. But I think it would probably be a little cheaper. But if you add in the time and labor, you kind of break even.
What I would do is, for the cheese, I would actually buy a whole block.
Oh yes, I remember that. You buy a whole block and you shred it,
and it would last for like months and months.
Well, I don't think. Well, yeah. I don't know. I just put shredded cheese and then put it in the freezer when I'm done, and that's usually fine.
Do you make your own pizza?
Yeah. Pretty recently, actually. They sell pizza dough at 7 Mile, and I usually go through that, and you just make like 2-3 pies that are about, I would say, like 8x14s maybe. Just because I put it in the pan in the convection oven. You put it in. You put the trick of the trade is you have the flame really hot or the temperature really hot, so it's very little and so the pizza dough itself should be like maybe a quarter inch thick, maybe a little, maybe like about a quarter inch thick, maybe a little thicker. You take a very little amount of pizza sauce and you kind of spread it around with like a spoon, and then you can dollop the cheese and all the other stuff, and you put it in at like 425 for like 10, maybe 15 minutes max, and you're good to go. And just keep in mind the pan should be, very well greased up, and you just boom, 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 you're done in 10 minutes. It's all nice and crisp and good. Didn't you try to like use a juicer back in the day and try to be all like super health conscious and only use it like once or twice?
What happened was, my roommates, right when I was engaged to your father, I was sharing an apartment with these roommates who were into, I think we went in, they were followers of Mary Becerra.
What I think we talked about that. Yeah.
We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
So they went to all this health stuff, and they convinced me that I should get a juicer, and that way I could make all this like carrot juice and apple juice and all these different juices. So I did. So I got a juicer.
And how often do you use it again?
I used it quite a few times, but after a while it was like kind
It
of
lost
lost
its appeal.
interest.
Yeah, it lost its appeal.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think I do remember making sloppy joes that we
Oh
were
yeah.
I didn't care for sloppy joes. It confused me because I'm like, this is like a decommissioned burger. Like this doesn't make any sense. It's
Ground
just
beef.
terrible. Yeah, it's ground beef that like wasn't patted down, and like I don't know. I felt like the flavor was kind of cheap. I like just like I don't care for meatballs and spaghetti. I don't care for that, and it kind of reminded me of that on some level.
I don't mind what I like meat sauce and spaghetti. That's
Okay.
nice. Where take tomato paste, meat, you brown the meat, and brown the meat with onions and garlic, then tomato paste, and maybe you want to put in dill or basil.
What was there? Was there
And
anything
it's simmer.
was there anything your mother made back in the day that you like still like think of and enjoyed and try to copy, or was she like just a terrible cook, or were you just didn't care for any of the food she made?
Well, let's put it this way: the one thing I swore I would never do
You did.
is open up a can of spaghetti, and I
Oh,
never did.
open up why? That's what she did sometimes.
Yep, spaghetti, the whole thing, spaghetti with sauce, and just open up a can and warm it up, and that's it.
We're I guess
And spaghetti in a can. That's one thing I would never do to my kids. I would never give them spaghetti in a can.
so I'm trying to think that like maybe was there anything like TV dinners or gelatin molds, like anything that like that was 1950s style stuff, like canned meat, you know?
She got yeah, when I know like Saturday evenings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame her. She didn't feel like cooking Saturday evenings. So these when we were teenagers, so she got these basically TV dinners.
Yeah.
Just pop into the oven. That's it. I told you about that movie your father and I saw in the 1980s.
No, what?
Okay. It was John Denver,
Okay.
and it was called Oh God.
Oh God,
And
by
it's
John
about this
Denver.
man. He's a supermarket manager,
Mm-hmm.
and God comes to him, and the part of God was played by oh gosh, George Allen. Was it George Allen? Gracie. Yeah, George Allen, George and Gracie. Yeah,
George
George
Burns.
Allen.
Yeah, George
George Burns.
Burns.
I'm sorry, George Burns. Yeah, George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Yeah.
George Burns. In fact, he was in his 90s when he did that role.
Oh wow.
And he played God. And he comes to the manager, and he says, I'm coming to you because I want you to send a message to everybody. And people think that I don't care. I want you to tell everybody that I love that I really do care. I care very, very much about the people here on earth. And I want you to tell everybody everything's going to be okay, that I care about everybody. And I want you to spread that message. So there's a scene where John Denver's wife, now I was a stay-at-home housewife at that time. And I was also into like cooking. I was also like very much into cooking and everything, and trying experimenting with different things with cooking. And John Denver's wife tells him that she has to make dinner. And here she's surrounded. I don't know if we did this on another podcast. She's totally surrounded with all this very fancy kitchen equipment.
Yeah.
And she goes to the freezer and pulls out 4 TV dinners and pops them in the oven. 2 people in the audience laughed. Me and your father.
Oh, because she's
No
just
one
so
else
exhausted.
in the audience laughed.
Interesting.
Because me being a stay-at-home housewife, I had to laugh. Like she's all this fancy kitchen equipment and pots and pans and food processor and you name it and woks. And what does she do? She pulls out TV dinners and pops them in the oven.
So what would your mother make for Shabbos then?
Well, Friday night we had a Baruch Hashem, a regular traditional Shabbos dinner with Oh, her potato cookle was really good. And she would also make potato stuffing.
Mm.
I tried that once. I thought it was pretty good, but your father didn't like it.
Potato
But
stuffing. How'd you make it?
it was the same. It was the same recipe as a potato kugel, only instead of putting it on a pan in the oven, you used it. You took a whole chicken and
Hmm.
you stuffed the cavity with
Oh,
this,
okay.
with the raw potato kugel mush, and you put it in the oven, and it came out really delicious. So it had the flavor of the chicken in it. And my mother made chicken soup. My mother's chicken soup was amazing. That's one thing, yeah, I did copy from her.
Oh,
She made
okay.
amazing chicken soup because she made it with my favorite
What?
ingredient,
Salt?
chicken feet.
Oh, chicken feet. Oh, yeah. I remember you did
People,
chicken feet. That was always it was good. I mean, it added flavor and everything like that. I remember you cracking open the skin and like seeing like the meat in the chicken feet. I think Tati like got grossed out by that or something.
I used to love that. I used to put chicken feet in the soup.
Oh yeah,
I
it was
still do.
great.
They finally brought it back.
Oh yeah, because it was like illegal for a while.
Well, for what was illegal, then they brought it back,
Hmm.
and then COVID hit.
Oh,
And when COVID hit, I hadn't seen it since until just a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I went to Glicks, and there in the freezer were frozen chicken feet. I was
that's
so
awesome.
excited for you. The world, there's hope for the world. There is chicken feet.
Did,
And I took it home and I made chicken soup with it. You know, when you make chicken soup with chicken feet, you come in the house, you can, that's the chickeny thing. You can smell that delicious
mm.
chickeny flavor all over the house. And when they talk about the medicinal values of chicken soup, that's what they're talking about, because chicken feet are my mother always insisted they were very high in vitamins. And then one day I was listening to a program where they were talking about chicken feet, and they were saying people don't realize how healthy chicken feet are, that they are full of vitamins. They're full of hyaluronic acid,
Hmm.
which is an anti-inflammatory. And they even theorize that there might even be an antibiotic in
So
chicken soup that's made with chicken feet.
so what's the recipe for Bubby's chicken soup?
Oh, you take chicken feet and you put it, and you have chicken feet in the soup, chicken feet, gizzards, you
Oh,
know.
you put gizzards in. Okay.
Yeah, gizzards, chicken feet, bones, you name it, like the parts of the chicken, maybe chicken wings, that type of thing. Because I
Okay.
find a lot of people will use it. Well, you can use a whole chicken. A whole chicken would even be better. Okay, chicken,
Oh,
really
I see what you're
nice.
saying. Yeah.
But some people don't like that boiled. You know, the chicken meat being boiled. Some people prefer it roasted, and also the white meat when you put it in soup has a tendency to be, I don't know what it is, like kind of tough and tasteless. I'm not so crazy about white meat. I like the dark meat anyway. So and you put it in there with onions. Now my mother never used garlic. Never. She used garlic salt
Okay.
or garlic powder. But there was some sort of aversion that her whole family had to garlic. I don't know what it was, but my macrobiotic roommates were the ones that got me hooked on garlic, because it's supposed to have a lot of very good medicinal value to it. It's supposed to be very good for cholesterol.
Hmm.
So it's like your sister's said it one day. She says, she's garlic is like a detergent for the bloodstream. And I put garlic in it. I like dill. You don't like dill.
No,
I
don't
know.
care for it.
I stopped using dill because you said you didn't when you were a little boy. You said right away you didn't like it, so I never used dill. But when I'm cooking for myself, I like to use dill. And there's of course the carrots and the onions and celery, and you just boil this thing. You boil it up for maybe about 15 minutes, half an hour, and then you turn down the flame and you simmer it.
Oh, awesome.
And you put a little bit of, I like to use that instead of salt. I like to use that um chicken flavoring powder.
Yeah.
I like to use that, and white pepper. For some reason, there's something about white pepper in Jewish cooking that when I was a little girl and my bubbies would cook and my mother would cook, there was some sort of flavor. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was very characteristic of Jewish cooking at the time. It was in the filter fish, it was in the soup, it was in a lot of, what we think was, Jewish style,
Yeah.
European Jewish style cooking. And then years later, I realized it was white pepper.
Wow.
There's
See,
something about white pepper that
were there any like food trends that you missed? You wish they came back? Like fondue, maybe?
you mean you mean fondue's out of fashion?
No, I'm saying like it's not, I wouldn't say anything is out of fashion, but it's no longer mainstream. It's more of like a niche, a
Mhm.
niche kind of spot. But like you wish that it became more popular, even though it kind of lost its popularity over time.
Well, I remember when I was in college, there were some students at Hopkins that had a fondue party that I was invited to. It was it was really delicious. I mean, they had that fondue pot, and they were putting in all these different types of cheeses and wine, and they gave everybody had sticks with pieces of bread or fruit, and you dipped it into this melted cheese with wine mixture.
That's awesome.
That was really good.
I think I remember you made black-eyed peas, and like I didn't like them, and Tati didn't like them either. He felt something was staring at him.
He was, I can't eat them. They're looking at me. Your father never liked anything. Like I used to like to make, when we first got married, I used to like to make a whole fish, head and
Oh
all, because it's
yeah.
so pretty, nice and shiny, put olive oil on it and stuff it with garlic and dill and, put season all on it. And he looked at it and was, I can't eat it. It's looking at me.
Yeah, I'm not like, I like fish. I'm not like a huge fan of it that's like obsessed with it, but I can do it. I can work through it. I know you're just obsessed with it. You love it. I always watching these cooking clips of people roasting a fish over a fire. It
You
always looks so
showed that to
delicious.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, I got the guy that was outside the outdoors guy,
Mm-hmm.
who
Mm-hmm.
had melted butter with all these like different vegetables and smeared it on the fish when it was over the grill. Oh my,
Did
that
you
was
have
good.
did you have any go-to camping food when you ever went camping?
No, I've only been camping. Well, when I was in Girl Scouts, we really didn't do camping like
Okay.
overnight. We we took a big hike around Patterson Park, and we each bunk came up with their own recipe for like some outdoor cooking things. And my bunk wasn't all that creative. We had I think we all brought hot dogs we could just roast over the
Mm-hmm.
fire, that type of thing. But this one bunk, I was so envious. This one bunk made like a soup, like a wilderness soup,
Oh, that's cool.
like with beef and vegetables. And it was, I was sitting there watching them, watching the what's it, the bunk leader, like spoon it out, like ladle it out to them. And it was just, I was so envious. Why didn't our bunk do something like that?
Yeah, I remember having that issue when I was in camp where like I'd be jealous of other bunks getting to do other activities. And like my bunk was just really lame and my counselor was not very active. I think there was
Mm.
this like one time I was in camp Ganyasral in Detroit. Um, and like we had like the bunk that was the same age as us. The counselor was very enthusiastic, always got along with all the kids, spoke to everybody, was very happy with everyone, always getting things involved, having like these night activities that they had, runaways they would call them, where like you'd get up and you'd be woken up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and you'd all run away and you really just leave and go into town and get like you get some snacks from like 7-Eleven, and then you have like a breakfast made with a bonfire. And like we didn't get anything. We complained. We finally got it, but it was kind of
Mhm.
sad and sympathetic, where it's just more of like, oh, we were like the Nebuchs. We're like, oh, here you go. Here's some food. Here's some stuff. Here's a runaway. when like our counselor didn't do anything. He wasn't very involved. He didn't show like the care that the other counselor did. But we
That can
did
happen. Yeah.
what I really enjoyed though is we had a scoutmaster, legit scoutmaster, who had like all this stuff and took us out like to go real camping stuff, like really how to make a tent, how to make a fire, how to do all the stuff. It was really cool.
Ooh.
But it was only
Mhm.
again like anything in these camps that I went to, it was one time the entire semester,
Mhm.
as you would call it, and that was it. You know?
Yeah, that's the only time I went camping. When I was I was a head counselor at Pardes in Montreal,
Yeah.
and we had it's called the overnight.
Mm,
And the way that we found what happened was a friend of mine and I, on our days off, we just enjoyed hiking around the Laurentian Mountains.
yeah.
And we happened to go up this road. We happened to start hiking, and we came across these really nice, like, official campgrounds. Like, there was a lake, and there was a shower and a bathroom. It wasn't like you were stuck in the middle. It was, you know, it was a very nice like campsite. So we asked them about how much it cost and everything, and we went back to camp and we told the director about it, and we had a pamphlet, and she looked at it and she goes, she thought it was a great idea too. She thought it was great, it'd be perfect for the overnight. So we went up there, and I remember this friend of mine. She was from Minnesota. She was like more of a country girl, and she had gone camping quite a bit. So she knew we didn't have we didn't have a tent, but we just all brought our sleeping bags, and we got pillows and sleeping bags and everything. And she made this huge fire, and I forgot. Yeah, I forgot we had for dinner the typical. I think hot dogs and potatoes, roasted over the fire, whatever. I remember you kids having. Remember you kids made this fire pit in our backyard,
Yep.
and Glendale. Yeah, and I remember you would just take hot dogs and put them on like a stick and just you know put it out, make a fire, and just roast the hot dogs over the fire,
Yeah.
or marshmallows. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And she was like, wow, she really helped in this like expedition, whatever. So I remember the middle of the night, I woke up, and she was refurbishing the fire and trying to make it bigger, because this is Canada.
Oh
This is
yeah.
the mountains in Canada. It can get chilly up there. I mean, it can get really chilly. So she was redoing the fire, and in the morning I got up, and they had these spigots of water. If you wanted water, you could go to and just fill up your canteen, whatever, from these spigots that were there. And so I came over to the spigots and started brushing my teeth. And she yells at me, "You don't brush your teeth on a camping trip."
Yeah. Did you ever forage or know anybody that like I guess you can eat like be like, ooh, this grass or this mushroom, or you could do this and that, like when you're, because I always think that's really cool. I think that's really neat.
Well, not mushrooms, because I wouldn't take a chance
Mm,
on mushrooms, because I'm not a connoisseur. You got to really know what you're doing. When it comes to
yeah.
mushrooms, of course, you could
Yeah,
like
you could.
go, yeah, being dead actually.
Oh yeah.
But what I did was, I remember one time on our old house in Fairview Avenue, when I was like, I think 9, 10 years old, I was noticing as I was walking along the lawn, whenever my father would mow the lawn, I always smelled onions.
Hmm.
And so one day I'm walking around, I said, there's got to be spring onions growing. And in New York, they call them scallions.
Yeah.
In Baltimore, we call them spring onions.
Yep.
Yeah, the long, thin onions. So I'm walking on, and I thought I saw something that looked like spring onions coming out of the ground. And I went over and I dug them up. And sure enough, yes, they were these nice, young, tender spring onions. So I dug up a whole bunch of them, brought them into the house. I washed them off really well with soap and water, and then rinsed them with clear water and ate them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think.
And then when I went hiking with this friend of mine, I told you this friend of
Yeah.
mine from Minnesota, we were way up in the mountain, like we were high up on this hill, and we saw a whole patch of wild blueberries.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, I had never seen blueberries. I mean, I saw them in the store, but I had never seen them wild. So I said to her, "How do you know these aren't poisonous?" So she knew. She says, "It says the two signs of a poison berry is that it's shiny and that it's smooth." Now, if you look at these blueberries, they're not shiny, and you see that crown. She showed me the crown.
Mm-hmm.
You see those bumps? See that crown? That shows that it's edible. If it's got like bumps like this or like a crown, like blueberries do. So we picked these blueberries like right from these patches, these wild patches, and we ate them.
Yeah, I mean, there are some edible berries here that I know of that I used to eat all the time when I was growing up, and also honeysuckles too, where it's like you
Oh
just
yeah, we did
take up
that
the
too.
bit.
Yes.
Yeah,
When I was a kid, we did that. We had a lot of honeysuckle vines around our area, and we would just pick the honeysuckles and tear off the end and just suck it. Yeah.
yeah. Was there anything else when you were a kid that you used to like eat that like I guess people don't do anymore, or like you just never
Wild
heard yet?
wild stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't religious. So when I was real little, I was maybe 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My father was took me down to this wharf. It must have been it's what today is the Inner Harbor.
Okay.
And there were boats, oyster, where they had actually harvested some oyster boats there. And so my father bought some oysters, and he took out a penknife and he opened up the oyster and actually fed the raw oysters to me.
Oh wow.
And like I said, we weren't religious. We didn't, we kept kosher in the house. We didn't keep, and I hate to say it, I
You
loved
loved
it.
them.
Really did. I love the taste of raw oysters. Can't have it anymore, but I love the taste of raw oysters. And I was eating oyster after oyster. And I remember this man, there was an older looking man from, I think he sounded like he was European with his accent, and he couldn't get over it. He goes, "Look at that little girl eating those oysters." He couldn't believe that a kid would love oysters that much.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, no, I remember you telling me that oysters taste like if you took raw eggs and spiced them up.
Yeah.
What spices would you use?
Seasonal.
Really? Just take some oysters, raw egg with seasonal, and that's it?
Yeah,
And
and a little bit of vinegar.
a little vinegar.
So
Okay.
it probably tastes like that. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think we can't do that now because I think now it's trendy to not eat raw eggs, but give
Yeah.
it like five.
Well, is there something about? I mean, they go back and forth with raw eggs. So
Yeah,
there's bacteria, and you
yeah.
shouldn't do it. And I don't know.
Salmonella, not salmonella. It's an issue. It's not an issue. It's whatever. I mean, maybe I'll take like an egg. Ooh, I know what I could do. I can take an egg yolk, maybe heat it up just a little bit where it's nice and runny, and then pour in seasonal with a little bit of vinegar, and then that'll be it.
Well, my father ate raw eggs all the time.
Didn't your father exercise all the time? Like he would still use
Yes.
his army, exercises and whatnot.
He exercised. Well, not only did he exercise every day, but his work
Oh
was very
yeah,
physical. Yeah.
and he worked till what? How old was he when he retired?
Around 70-ish.
Oh wow, so he kept on going for a while.
Yeah, he went to what happened was his truck broke down.
Okay.
And that's when he decided, forget, I'm seven. He felt he was 70.
Oh yeah.
Getting sight. He's not about to invest in another truck, and he just felt, he felt it was enough already.
Yeah, I think we talked about that previously.
Mm.
What about your grandfather? Did your grandfather? I know your from your mother's side. Your father's side, I think he, like, I don't know. I know some stuff we talked about it previously. I'm just trying to like refresh my memory.
My grandfather on my father's side, well, he died at the age of 75, which it was around. Oh, I think I was in my senior year
Mm-hmm.
of college, so that was like 1973.
Oh wow.
So, and people were saying at that time, 75 was considered really old, like
Oh
pretty
yeah.
old. It would be like
Yeah.
90. I guess it'd be like 90 today, 90, 95 today.
Okay.
Yeah, but and
Oh,
he died of a very sudden heart attack, very
okay.
very sudden. Like
Well,
Aaron, it was like
we got
Aaron.
we,
It
we
was like
got
Oh, we're going out.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, we're out of time.
Okay.
But I love you. I'll call you later.